Thank you guys for showing up today. Me and Eric are excited to talk over the Dallas market. This is a newer market for Marshall Reddick, not a newer market for Eric. Eric has been in the area a long time and is going to kind of take the reins on explaining the details and intricacies of Dallas. I'm actually in Central Texas. I've been with the company at Marshall Reddick for about 7 years now in November. Um, I started real estate in 2017. I hold a broker's license. I started at Marshall Reddick like a lot of agents do, doing a lot of leases. We are both a property manager and a brokerage. So we really pride ourselves in being able to control the entire process from start to finish, making it for seamless for owners to use our real estate experts to identify good properties, and then lease them and find good tenants and then maintain them with good property management. I moved into sales shortly after doing lots and lots of leases, and that kind of gave me the perspective of what makes a good investment. I think your tenant quality, your ability to raise rents on your tenants, the things that your tenants like, the questions that they ask is very indicative of whether or not the investment will perform. And that's a lot of the methodology we teach at Marshall Reddick in picking good investments, and our market experts are really good at identifying that because they do both. I lead all of the teams for the brokerage in our main metropolitans in Texas. So that's Dallas, that's Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and New Braunfels, which is a big area for us. It's not necessarily a metro, but that's in San Antonio metropolitan. I'm a lifelong Texas resident, born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. Grew up in New Braunfels, like I said. I actually spent a fraction of my childhood, about 4 or 5 years, in Plano. So I did live in Dallas a little bit and still have a lot of friends and family in North Dallas. So it's always very exciting to go out there and visit the team and tour properties and rekindle with friends from my childhood. And I do own investment property. I built my primary home. I have a barn dominium. If anybody knows what that is, it's like a country style house. And that was a huge project for me a few years ago that I very proud of, and definitely taught me a lot over the construction side. And I'm also a member of the Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund, which is a fund that we have for investors wanting to get their feet wet in private lending. A little bit about our company, like I mentioned, we are a property manager and a brokerage. We're also a private money lender. If you're ever maxed out for your conventional loans, the 10 that are allowed, and you need more money more easily with less red tape, we do have a private money lender that you can be the borrower on. But if you're also looking for something more secure, just like investing in properties, we have owners invest in mortgages as well that are high yield. And kind of in connection with that, we have an investment fund, which is our private mortgage fund. The average is about 8.5. It's a very stable fund. Again, it's based in a lot of different construction loans, short-term fix and flip loans. They have a really great underwriting team. And again, I've been a client of all of our departments. So is Eric, actually. That's how we actually got to know him, is he has lots of properties throughout all of our Texas markets. But more recently, Eric, just a few years ago, had bought in a duplex in New Braunfels, Texas, and started to get interested in actually starting to get to work in real estate. He obviously has been a vet investor himself, buying his own properties, managing, advising friends and family. And we were like, hey, you can actually do this for a living. He's like, where do I sign up? And so here's some of our markets, just an overview of all the ones outside of Texas. We're also pretty prominent in Tennessee and in Southern California. So if you have any real estate needs in LA, and I don't think we have it on here, but we're also in San Diego as of recent. And again, if you have any properties in Nashville, Clarksville, or Cape Coral, we manage in all these metropolitans. So without further ado, I do want to jump over to Eric. And these are our teams, by the way. I didn't want to skip over this, but we have a massive team. We don't outsource a lot of things. Each one of our PM teams is about 5 people. And in Texas in particular, we have 7 PM teams. So we're really about having locals there, boots on the ground. And we don't want to just rely on, third-party contractors. We do work with a lot of third-party contractors, but we do really pride ourselves in having a lot of good W-2 staff on duty to answer the phones and help out our clients in all these different markets. But without further more, I wanted to introduce Eric Douglas. Again, he's our Dallas OG. I'll let Eric kind of introduce himself a little bit and share a little bit about his story. Eric, you can take over.
Perfect. Can everyone hear me okay? Yep. Can you hear
Yep.
me? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Hey, everyone. Thanks, Annie, for putting this together and inviting us and inviting myself. So, hi, once again, I'm Eric Douglas, and I have been in Dallas since 2008. My wife and I moved here from Los Angeles. We have a daughter that's 6, Eden, and she goes to school in Frisco, and I actually live in Prosper. So, but we get over to the demographics of the kind of layout of North Dallas. Uh, like Kian said, I've been investing ever since I got out of college, right? And so I've been investing for over 20 years. I've been a Marshall Riddick client for like 18 plus years. It wasn't until I got ingrained into Marshall Riddick's philosophy, that's when I finally figured out what investing meant and my purpose, right? And so I found my purpose to investing, self-taught education and learning, attending the Marshall Riddick seminars, working with my advisor, understanding the plan, understanding the philosophy. Um, I've been investing for over 20 years, and I have property in different markets such as Los Angeles, City of Cerritos, Dallas, Houston, Frisco, McKinney, New Braunfels, Kentucky, and Arizona. I like to find niches in areas of progress. And one thing that I learned with Marshall Riddick is I buy where there is a Costco either coming or already located within 3 to 7 miles. So that's been my
That is
success.
so loud. Like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like function here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Perfect. And one good thing, I am an entrepreneur. I once owned a chicken farm in Kentucky, and I did run that remotely. So that's one cool fact about me. Ken, can you go to the next slide for me? All right. So, you know, Dallas, Texas. Why Texas? Of course. Texas most definitely is the place to invest, right? With the population of over 30 million people. Texas is landlord friendly. It has one of the lowest vacancy rates. The lower premiums, I experienced that especially with newer construction homes. North Dallas, particularly Collin County, which includes the Friscos, the Planos, the McKinneys, and also Salina. Those are the fastest growing regions in the Metroplex. Just to give you some statistics, there are 423 people that are moving to Dallas, right? 108 of those people are moving north to that Collin County area. So I've been in this area for since 2008, and so I've seen the growth. I've seen the roads expansions, and then if you ever come down here, you can see the cranes in the air, the constructions, the trucks, the movement, the traffic. So most definitely, I can see the growth here. It's been a phenomenal experience for myself. The other thing about going back to why Dallas, right? The Dallas Metroplex is the hottest real estate market. Its shift, its buyers are it's for buyers and sellers and investors. Good, decent prices in the Metroplex. One of the key drivers to why investors come to Dallas is population growth. 100, and like I said before, 150,000 new residents between 2024 and 2025. There's also corporate relocations, infrastructure developments, and also those developments and infrastructure, it invites and attracts attention nationwide for people to come to Dallas, right? So one of the things is, when there's employers and they come, they bring their families, they bring big businesses. One major employer that came from California, for those of you who are based out of Los Angeles, is Toyota. When Toyota moved to Plano, they brought it was 3,500 jobs, and then I think that's when I've seen a boom of California folks here in the city, whether it be at Target or Costco. And it was interesting to start to see people with Dodgers hats and other Los Angeles gear. So the one thing that attracted me and my wife to come to Dallas was it was a very, very diverse town, right? Um, we felt comfortable. We went to different restaurants and we noticed the diversity right away, and it reminded us of being in Los Angeles. So that's one of the big attractions here in terms of a rich culture. Uh, so let's see. All right, perfect. One of the economic factors here in a strong economy is that is a business a diversity, right? And so it's a has a robust GDP growth and economic diversity, and we're kind of getting to how that impacts the appreciation year over year and how that from an investor perspective. But here's some statistics to show you. You know, number three best in U.S. for construction workers, top U.S. metro for Fortune 500 companies. 24 of those four Fortune 500 companies are in Dallas, and more is to come over the next year, just because it's a business friendly environment for most businesses. Okay. Now Frisco. Frisco is a place, this is where I moved to when we first stepped foot into Dallas. It's has been rated one of the best suburbs in Collin County. It's expanded, it's family friendly. I remember when we first moved there in 2010, we built our house for $250,000. That same house is like 800,000. And of course, there was a Costco that was built 4 miles away. So we love Frisco. I live in Prosper now, which is probably like 5 miles away from Frisco. Most of our activities is in Frisco. Prosper is just a smaller town, but most definitely it's not that far of a distance for entertainment and shopping and things of that nature. The second thing is North Dallas is a very safe city, right? Whether it's Plano, Frisco, McKinney, or Prosper, very safe, very low crime rate. And so, you know, we love it here. And it's like I said, it's always been this corridor of North Dallas has always been rated best places to live in the US, just because of the safety and in the business friendly environment.
And we do quite a bit of the properties that we have picked today are a lot of the suburbs within arm's reach of Frisco. It's not like we don't have investors that invest in Frisco. It's just very expensive. It is closer to central Dallas, so to speak. So it is a popular centralized hub like Plano is. But I mean, the average home price, Eric, I don't know what you would say off the top of your head, but it's well above, I would think, 500s.
Yeah, so the average, believe it or not, Ken, the average home in Frisco is pretty about 480. Um, but that takes into account there's different parts of Frisco where you can get to, you know, the older areas of Frisco versus the newer developments. So, but there is a gap. It might they jump from 480 to 580 to 600. Like, so yeah, there's different pockets.
Yeah, so very hard to make Frisco cash flow. It's a great option for appreciation if you're buying cash, but other than that, with a loan, it's a very difficult purchase there. And again, we do have investors that get into Frisco now, but I think there's a lot of good opportunity north of Frisco and a lot of these pockets that we're going to discuss. But Eric, I'll let you take over for Dallas appreciation.
Yeah, one of the things I know, Annie, we talked about this in terms of why Dallas, right? And so one of the key differences here is appreciation, right? We've all seen these spikes of appreciation over the last, 5 years, especially during COVID. But one thing I wanted to kind of point out to you all is from 2000 to 2024, I want you guys to take a look at the 2008, 2009 and where we see negative appreciation. And this is a time where, of course, we were going through the financial crisis. And one thing that I'm not sure if you guys are keen to this, but in other states like Florida and California, um, Vegas, some of those uh, cities took a major, major hit with the appreciation closer to the 20%, 30% mark in negative appreciation versus Dallas. only sustained a 3% of a negative appreciation. And what that tells you is it tells you how diverse the economy is with the multiple levers of different businesses, whether it's aerospace, whether it's technology, whether it's oil, whether it's healthcare. And so it can withstand um, any economic downturn. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball, but as you can see from the numbers here, I think Dallas is well positioned to stand on its own in terms of any type of downturn. Kian, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I would say, 2023 and 2024 especially have been a downturn in most markets in the United States. In fact, when we did Houston, I think a week or two ago with Annie in a lot of SARE, you could see on that graph that those were deeper cuts for Houston. It was in about -3% for 2024, and I think -3 or 4 for 2023. Austin has been the deepest cut, but to be fair, Austin had the biggest appreciation from 2019 to 2022. So I think it was just a more of a correction than it was the failure of Austin. But Austin definitely is less diverse. It is mostly focused in tech, which has been most affected since kind of work from home has been deconstructed a little bit, and we've kind of passed through COVID. Whereas San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas, I would say, have a lot more diversity in that. But Dallas outperforms, and we even have it's a green year, but I mean it's less than 1%, but that is a positive right now, especially for 2024. Most markets, not just in the country, but in Texas, were negative. And to not even be at a negative 1% for 2023, not even a negative at all for 2024, and probably still going to be break even this year. It's a big testament to how strong Dallas is, because you're not looking for markets that are fail proof, so there's never any red. To me, that just doesn't exist. And maybe if it even did, it would be very, very small appreciation years across the board. We want to get past the red and get to these years where you're 10% here, 10% there. There's at least 5 years here that have double-digit appreciation, which is great. And the average that you're compounding with all of this gets you to about almost 6%, which is great for real estate. It's very competitive, especially with all the tax implications you have with real estate. So this is kind of the report card we do for Dallas, and just another testament of why it's a great place to park your cash.
Yeah, so thanks, Ken. That was a great note there. One thing here you want to pay attention to is what's big for investors is how long is my property going to be vacant versus occupied? As you can see here, uh, Dallas has a low vacancy rate, which at from on this graph here is like 12%, and occupied is 88%. And I have testimony for myself. Typically, if I was to turn over one of my units, it'd probably take me 2 weeks. And that's pretty consistent across, all of my properties in North Dallas. I do own properties in Tarrant, like close to Fort Worth and also in Dallas, but they all pretty much are consistent with low vacancy rates and turnovers by about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the make ready. But uh, that's typically what I've seen and noticed. The other piece of this is from an ownership perspective. It's almost becoming a 50-50 split with owner occupied versus renter. But one thing, I did some research and I found out that you know people are buying their first homes now at ages 38 or 40, right? And so what that means for us investors is that you're going to have more renters, right? A lot of it has to do with the cost to buy a home. It's very expensive. And then when you start adding the taxes, the insurance, the HOA, the maintenance, it's becoming very costly for people to actually buy, right? And so more and more, I'm starting to see more and more rental communities pop up in North Dallas. But this slide here just demonstrates, the low vacancy rate here. So um, next slide, can you? In terms of Dallas from a cost of living perspective and the age of the population. So overall, the average age in North Dallas is going to be about 34 years old. That does not include me for sure, but it is 34. It's a younger workforce. But like I said, within any city, you're going to have different pockets of different populations that do different things. So, but overall, it's a very diverse, healthy economy, for what I see. Um, and, when I first moved here in 2008, it was extremely cheap. Gas is always cheaper than, I'm basing it on California gas prices. The one thing that we've noticed, of course, across the nation, of course, groceries, but taxes and insurance have went up dramatically, in Texas, I'm sure in other markets as well. But still, Dallas still fares favorably for investors in terms of insurance and taxes. I was Annie when I was emailing. They were always the government here in Dallas and Texas is always talking about getting rid of property taxes, and so I most definitely am paying close attention to that. So hopefully they do something, but that is something that I'm hopeful for. But yeah, overall, Dallas most definitely is a good place to live and raise a family.
We definitely probably won't see the elimination of property taxes because I don't know what we'll pay for the roads and things to keep things running. But I think just like California, I forget what proposition it is. Maybe Annie or Eric have the off the top of their head, but in California, you're freezing your property taxes typically. And you're not having the constant appraisals every year that are increasing that bill on you. And I think as California home prices got more and more expensive through the 90s, people were displaced because it's like you buy a home, if you get approved for it and you can afford it, but now the taxes has made it to where, 20 years from now, if it increases a little bit every year, you can't even afford the home that you own. Even if you own it outright and you inherited it, if you can't pay the tax bill and it's gotten away from you, you can't live there anymore. And that happened to some people in Austin, where in Houston, where tax rates are significantly higher. And I think we saw legislation about a year ago that increased kind of the homestead exemption, which was good and helpful. But I think as prices increase in Texas, we're going to see more um, legislation because home prices are going up. And we still use that as the mechanism to help run our state. So it's not going to go anywhere. But I do think in somewhere in Texas future, there's going to be maybe an increase in sales tax with some decrease in property tax because it's just not sustainable for how it is currently. Luckily, values have stayed stagnant. So I think for now it's not as much of an issue, but once we kind of get back to a lower interest rate environment, it is not sustainable. And I do think that it will create more problems for Texans down the road. So that's something to look out for. We do tax protesting for all of our owners in property management. We actually are getting back the results of this year's protest this month in October, which is really good. And we've saved a lot for our owners. And it's one of these things that you have to do every year because you compound sort of the gains that you make from the previous year. So if you've, an owner that has protested every year for 10 years and then the one that hasn't can have as much of a differentiation in the bill as like several grand. So it's one of those things you just don't do one and done. You have to do it every year in protest, and our company does that automatically for you. You can still opt to do it yourself if you'd like to, but we do that for all of our owners, and we do save a significant amount, legislation or not. But I'm going to give it back to Eric. Eric wants to explain some of the fun, cool stuff that is coming to the Metro right now and over the next year or two. So Eric, I'll let you take over.
Yep, perfect. So yeah, as you see right here, there's going to be a Universal Kids Resort that's in Frisco. And when I talk about North Dallas, right, there's going to be Salina, which is booming with 757% population since 2013 to now, and a projection of 100,000, the population to 100,000 by 2030. And there's Prosper, which is a population growth of 80% since 2010. And then Frisco, a growth champion with family appeal, tech, sports drivers, PGA of America is there. And then the average sales price in Frisco is going to be that 630,000 in that corridor. Of course, you're going to have Plano, which is going to be a North Dallas suburb. And then Richardson is going to be over off the 75. That's going to be northeast. Then you have South Lake and then other notable places like Princeton and Melissa. But coming back down to Frisco, this most definitely is a concentrated area for family and growth. Like I said, I currently live about 6 miles from this actual development. And it's something that's going to be a wonderful thing for families. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the theme of what Frisco is designed to do, and that is to be an entertainment hub for Texas, and particularly like Dallas as a whole. So the construction is already there. I pass by it frequently. You can see the roller coasters and all that stuff. So I think the residents in Frisco and Dallas as a whole is very excited about this particular resort coming here.
Something cool too, entertainment wise, is Netflix is actually opening the first two theaters in the country, a Netflix theater, and there's going to be one. Don't know where that one is, but the other one is coming to Dallas. I believe that is going to be in the Frisco area, and it's a sort of part movie theater, part experience based on a lot of the Netflix franchises. So something, I think this Universal is for like the younger kiddos. So anywhere from 3 or 4 all the way to 10 to 11 years old, and then Netflix is going to be a little bit of for the older kiddos, so like 12 through, you say, like 16 or 17. So there's a lot of different, and you also in Arlington have Six Flags, which has been around for years and years and years. Texas Live, there's a bunch of things in Arlington. So for all age groups, Dallas is very family friendly in that. So it's not just for the little kids or the older kids. There's a lot of things in place right now and a lot of cool things coming.
Yep. Yeah, it's you're right, Ken. There's so many different developments, and it's hard to get this down in a 30-minute presentation. But the biggest development that's coming to Frisco is going to be the Fields development. It's going to be 2,500 acres, a master plan community within Frisco. And actually, it's right across the street right across the highway from the Universal theme park. And so this thing is going to be humongous. It's already started. The houses start there at going to be 1 million and up. And some houses overlook the PGA golf course that's there. And so when people come to visit, I always take them down to PGA of America and kind of get a glimpse as to like how massive this development is. And you can kind of see it kind of come to fruition, exactly how it looks on this photo here. But it's going to bring 30,000 jobs, right? And so they're going to most definitely need housing, and then and jobs, and it's going to be a big development throughout the north side of Dallas for sure. So um, one other place is up the road from a development perspective. It's going to be Sherman, Texas. It's going to be about 30 minutes from Frisco. I highlight this development because of its infrastructure and development that's coming. It's a smaller town where the home prices are still reasonable, and we have some good quality builders in this area. And so I'm not sure if you guys keep up with what's going on with the semiconductor um, industry and Texas Instruments that's already housed here in Richardson, but they're expanding and putting a $30 billion semiconductor factory plant over in Sherman, and that's going to create about 3,500 jobs. Along with that, next slide, Ken. I'm not sure what the Okay. Along with that is Apple is also building out a semiconductor plant for wafers. That's also situated in Sherman, along with other developments. And so Sherman has dramatically popped up as one of the best places to invest, just because of the infrastructure and what's coming there. And, a $30 billion investment by just Texas Instrument alone. You can imagine what that's going to do to an economy such as a Sherman. And so this is a good place to invest as well. The home prices there are average about 250 to 400,000. But I have a good quality builder that is investor friendly that's in this area. So as you can see here on the map, from McKinney. It's right up the road off the 75. And you can actually see the plants, these massive plants that are being built. It's only 7 miles away. This community that I'm going to highlight is seven miles away from the actual plant. I actually used to go bike riding in Sherman. I used to be a big mountain biker, but it's in it was a little too far, so I stopped going. But here's a property that I want to highlight today. It's right in Westmore, in a Westmore subdivision. It's a brand new subdivision. And the builder is Mirage Homes. The price here is going to be the 311 with a 30% down payment of 93,000. And then the closing costs are right there at 2.6% of $8,000. So total capital here is going to be $102,000 to get in at this 311 price point, to see this cash flow, monthly cash flow of $153.51. So this is a good product, and a builder that I've worked with before. I know I sold a few of these properties to some Marshall Riddick investors already, but they have a great product here. So I only tend to look at and work with builders that have good quality and that I would buy myself, and especially with the location and that anticipated appreciation. Sherman is a solid market for first time and also seasoned investors.
The cool thing is I actually got to tour these while I was with Eric a few months back, and like you said, it's a great product. They actually had shown, this was the first time I ever saw this with a builder, is they opened up part of the model home's attic to show how insulated it is in there, because it just feels like part of the house. I mean, you could go in your attic and have whatever, your Christmas decorations or anything up there, and it completely just feels like part of your house. It is, blocks out a lot of that heat, and they use quality materials. One thing I wanted to point out is, Sherman, like he said, is about 30 minutes from McKinney. I think probably a little bit more from, if you're talking about Prosper or maybe Frisco, but it has good arm's length to these areas. You hit, I think, a Buc-ee's or two on the way to Sherman, which is really fun. So if
Yep.
you get the chance, Annie, that's where you can pick up your Christmas decorations or Halloween Buc-ee's. But yeah, I mean, we configured a few of the numbers here. They can allow you to put 30,000 split between the interest rate reduction and some of the price. So the real price is 335. If you're using part of the money towards buying the interest rate down and part of it for the price deduction, you get to about, 5.25, 5.5. And we usually do a free property management incentive for a lot of clients for the first year. So you're saving on that cost. And 153 isn't a ton, but for a A-class investment in Central Sherman, and from a lot of these big major industrial plants that are coming, these high-paying jobs nearby, there is just not really enough housing in Sherman. And so I think the bet on that pocket is all there, especially a lot of people are priced out of Frisco. A lot of people are priced out of Prosper, Plano. McKinney is still sort of affordable, but we look at investments there, and I tried to look at a lot with Eric. A lot of them are in MUDs or PIDs. So this is an extra line item that's on your tax bill. MUD stands for I think Municipal Utility District, and then the other one is a Public Improvement District. And you're usually paying for the infrastructure of that area. If it's a little bit out from, central Dallas or central Houston is also where it's pretty popular. And this costs extra money. And sometimes they're only meant to stay 5 or 10 years. And it seems like most of those promises are always extended another year and another year. But for McKinney, your property taxes here is kind of what kills things. And out in Sherman, you don't have as high of a tax rate, and you are seeing some income. And so these figures here, just to kind of give you the breakdown, this monthly income is all these fixed expenses, the things that you're not going to get out of, unfortunately. It's like your taxes, your mortgage payment, your insurance, your management fee, and how much you're making with the rents. Now, these other expenses we call variable expenses. And these are things that we tell investors they should save for. I call them like rainy day expenses. So there are things like maintenance and vacancy. Luckily, this is an A-class property, so your likelihood of keeping a tenant goes up, your vacancy potentially goes down. And the average for a single family home A-class property, a tenant stay is about 2.5 years. In some pockets, as much as 3 years. So this is for you saving for future leasing fees, because with a Marshall Reddick or even your own PM, you're going to have to pay to release it every time. And then it's going to go vacant. So you're going to have to save for that. And then you usually will have some maintenance. And even though in your first few years, especially with warranties in place, you're not going to have a lot of maintenance with this property, but you're saving for year 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so if you start saving 5% year 1 and 2, you will have the money when things break down and they're not covered by a warranty anymore. It's not necessarily money we take, it is a suggestion. And the hope is that within the first 3 years, you can get this number to 0. Because if you get there with rent increases to 0, that means as long as you're saving these fees, putting this aside, you will not have to put another dime towards that property. So it's, you're saying, oh, I'm spending 100K on this property in Dallas. Well, probably within a year, the year increases usually are about $100 to $150 for rental increases that we see. Now rents have kind of paused the last few years, but Dallas has stayed pretty strong. So I think within the next year, if not 2027, we're going to see an increase, and then you're pretty much at break even, and that's total cash flow. That's paying all of your responsibilities plus all of your savings. So I think this is really good for an A-class property in Dallas, Dallas being a nicer metropolitan in the United States, and you have that proximity factor. Sherman is not Frisco, but to be within a 30 to 40-minute proximity of Frisco is going to be an advantage point if you do not have 400 to 500K you want to throw on a single family home in the Frisco area. So I think Sherman's a great alternative to this. I just wanted to kind of explain the numbers real quick. I didn't mean to steal the show from Eric, but I'll let Eric kind of go into the next product here. And Eric, you can explain at least what's a little bit special about Midlothian.
Before you get to that, Kane, you said there was about the 12-month free management thing for that property. Is that being paid by the developers, or is that just like a Marshall Reddick?
Sometimes we negotiate it with the builder. This one in particular, we would usually front it for clients utilizing us on the sale, and the brokerage would pay for that incentive when we're helping the investor with that, and then Marshall Reddick is in turn also managing it after.
Got it. And then after that first 12 months, how does well, if you can explain like your management fee, and then what would the estimated cash flow look like a year later once that's out?
So that is going to be, for a single family home, it's like 9%. So you're typically going to see that add about $200. So you'd be $200 back, but then you'd probably gain about 100 to 150 with the increase in rent. And again, that's kind of the average that we're seeing is about a 5% increase year over year. It's only in the last year in certain markets that has been harder. I would say particularly San Antonio. I would say that's not as hard in Houston as Dallas, especially these pockets. We've had a few of these rentals, Eric and our other agent Monique, and they've gone pretty quick. I haven't really had a Dallas property go over 30 days. Austin's another pretty strong market for rentals in North Houston. Parts of, I would say Fort Worth, parts of Austin, parts of San Antonio, parts of New Braunfels definitely are taking a little bit of a hit, and it's really indicative of how much inventory is already there in place, how much rental properties are there, so competition, and then the Job Corps. And so I think Sherman's a very new area still, and there's not a lot of rental competition as opposed to some of these like immediate northern suburbs. But it would add to your point, Annie, it would add $200 to this pro forma after a year of free property management. And you'd probably come to about the same numbers, again, factoring in like $150 increase after that year. And you're not really having to immediately year 1 save on maintenance, vacancy, or leasing. That is something best practices for the future, but that isn't real cost you're going to have year 1 or 2. So even though you have a negative right here, it is more of a hypothetical negative based on a 15-year hold. So it is what kind of maintenance and vacancy and leasing fees you'd spend over the course of 15 years, not necessarily what you would probably have in those first years. The hope is to get someone in there, pay a leasing fee, and they stay for that average of 3 years. That means you don't have to do another leasing fee in those 3 years. You don't have a vacancy in those 3 years. And you don't have really much maintenance, especially with the warranties that this new home builder offers.
And then with the Sherman plant that you had mentioned, is it already built or still being built? Or if it's still being built, how long runway do we have until it's actually like open?
It's being built. It's there. I think they might be like 75% built. And I think we got some more photos here. So yeah, there it's way past this view here, Annie. It's already there. You
I'm
can
thinking
see
like,
it.
we don't know, it's gonna take 5, 10 years to build, and then that's when people come in. So it sounds like it could be a long hold until their employees actually can utilize the place.
Yeah, there's
No, yeah, it's there. It's already. Let me Google it and find out the actual. But go
there's
ahead.
a portion that is utilized. It is going to be a master plan project. So there are several different other buildings that are still kind of in process right now. Eric can kind of look up, I think, when the entire project completes. But right now, there's already people working for Texas Instruments in Sherman at the facility that they have. Um, the other place that we kind of want to talk about to give some variety for people who may be looking at other investments is these multifamily in the southern region. So we've talked a lot about North. I'm going to have Eric talk a little bit about what's special with South Dallas and kind of what the prices and demographic looks like in that region.
Yeah, okay. So we've talked about North, but like I said before, there's 423 people moving to Dallas, right? Every single day. And so it's like ants just moving all over the place trying to find somewhere to live, right? And so what's happening is because of the lack of affordability north, there's a push coming south and Midlothian and Mansfield and that south area, that south corridor is starting to blow up and become. I don't want to throw out a Frisco, but they're sustaining the growth is rising monthly in that area. And so we have a builder with Value Builders that built a community called Edgewood Estates, which is in Midlothian. These are situated just approximately 25 miles from downtown Dallas, right? And so what you're getting is the population of folks that are wanting some space, empty nesters, that work in downtown Dallas. There's a hospital nearby. There's also the shingle company that supplies all the shingles in the state of Texas. That factories is close to Midlothian, maybe like 8 miles away. They're building a BJ's, which is very similar. I'm not sure if you guys remember this. A BJ's is very similar to a Costco, which is 8 miles from Midlothian. So the infrastructure and the build out up in Midlothian is starting to happen. A developer just purchased I'm gonna say I think 2,500 acres for $15 million, and I think there's a picture of that in here in terms of what's to come. They're building a resort style community with white sandy beaches, and that's under construction. And they just got a deal for 8,500 homes in that area, which sits right behind the Edgewood Estates. The thing about Midlothian right now is it has low property taxes and the insurance is low, and but the rents are because of it's a higher income area, and so the rents are higher at 24. I think the duplexes are 2,400 and the triplex are renting for 2,500,
What
and so
unit?
you're getting cash flow from both the duplex and the triplex just because of the rents and then also the property taxes here. Like I said, this is a very, very intriguing area for a lot of investors. One, because it's a good quality product and it cash flows, right? Good schools, good shopping. It's just a very unique property situated right outside of downtown Dallas.
Waxahachie is a little bit of a bigger city nearby where there's a lot of the regular things you see in a lot of regular sized cities. But I think what Eric is saying about Midlothian being like a next Frisco is really based on just the geography of it. And that's why we kind of put this here. Frisco, you kind of have a little bit here edging closer towards Dallas, but it has really good proximity to three of these major cities, which is Fort Worth, Arlington, and Dallas. You can get to each downtown usually within 30 to 40 minutes. So it is more rural than what you would get, but I would say as opposed to Sherman, I guess pros and cons if we're going over them, there's not a Texas Instruments level kind of thing coming into Midlothian, but Midlothian is a lot closer to central Dallas, central Fort Worth, and Arlington. And there's a lot of big things in these cities that people want to be in proximity to. And that's without compromising things like safety and crime in schools. Those are all really good. What I really liked in touring these a few months back with Eric is that the immediate around this community is all luxury single family homes. Like these duplexes and triplexes are on an acre lot, which is very uncommon for you to have that much land in tenants like that because they don't feel like they're in a townhome. They don't feel like they're in a duplex or a triplex. They feel like they have space, they have privacy. There's sound barriers in between. It's not, I don't know if a lot of you have been in like a multifamily home community before, but usually the street parking is horrendous, you know, because you have just tenants crammed with each other, but there's large spaces in between each of these buildings, which allows for a lot of parking, both in the driveway to the property. There's a good proximity there to the garage, but also in between each building, you can even park more cars. So it doesn't start to come off in the years after that it's this trashy duplex, triplex community. And it's a nice quality too. I mean, and I mean this seriously and genuinely. I've sold myself and mentored agents and seen different products throughout all of Texas. And by far, I was just shocked how nice this felt. It felt like a good quality single family home builder. And if you're doing the math on a triplex, this is 975. If you're trying to do the per unit cost, 975 divided by 3 is going to be 325 a unit. And the crazy thing is that a single family home in these pockets of the same quality is like closer to 400. So you're getting an actual cost savings without compromising the rent, and it cash flows very well. And a lot of these with the builder that we're working, these are pre-leased. So they're leased out ahead of time. You're saving on the leasing fee, saving on the vacancy. They have a really good warranty. And I always say pick the worst player on the best team. And I wouldn't say this is worst player and that it's a bad product. It's just that around you is luxury single family homes that are anywhere from 600K to 800K. And they're also on acre lots. Nice kind of the word that we like to say in Texas is McMansions. They're just these big sort of castle-like homes that you'll see. And those are your immediate neighbors in this pocket. And tenants are going to be willing to pay more when they're in the presence of that. They have space. Not to mention the HOA takes care of all of the grassy areas around the home. So you think, oh gosh, an acre, like my tenant's not going to take care of an acre. And you'd be right, they're not. So luckily the HOA is going to take care of the entire acre and maintaining that. So it just has a nice feel out there. And again, I'm not inflating this. We have probably at least a dozen multifamily communities. This is by far my favorite, especially for the value that it is. But Eric, I don't know if you want to share any more kind of about the product or these numbers here that we're looking at.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I'm almost out there every other weekend showing these properties, and the feedback is always great. I mean, the attention to detail The cabinets come from Germany, so they're all soft close cabinets. One thing to note that if you guys ever go onto our Marshall Ritter website, and take a look at the properties, I did take my drone and take some cool pictures, so you got some nice area views of the community, and some completed units and some that are still under construction, so you can see the complete layout. But by far, to Kian's point, I have multifamilies, and this by far is the best quality multifamily that I've seen on the market. And one thing I know in terms of growth in that area, Mansfield is probably about 8 minutes away. And then also Venus, that sub area, they're building a Google semiconductor plant as well. So that's not too far away. And Costco from Midlothian is going to be 10 miles away. So that's my marker.
Yeah, just to kind of give color, Annie, to your question, again, the most immediate around it is single family homes. A lot of those are already built and existing, some stretching from 2015 all the way to 2025. So there's just not a lot of immediate room around it. There is still land a lot in Midlothian, but I don't think a lot of it is zoned for multifamily right now. They're very, very, very strict on the multifamily zoning. That's why they had to be such a nice product. They had to be the acre lots. The HOA is very strict. And so all these things to make this very manicured community because and this is the case with a lot of cities in Texas, is that they're gonna have a lot of issues with the zoning, and it's not easy to get multifamily communities built. There you see more apartments closer to Waxahachie, but those two tenant pools don't overlap too much. So single family or duplexes and triplexes is sort of like a space in between a Venn diagram that you would see like single family homes and then apartments. And then there's the Venn diagram, there's the space in between. That's sort of where duplex and triplex tenants fall, is like they don't want to spend the money on a nearby single family home rent. Maybe because this is like a newer thing for them, a younger family, or they want less home. Or, they're in an apartment and that's all they can afford right now. And they would like to make the jump to something like this, but an apartment is really just getting their feet wet with their rental history. And that's really all that they can get right now. So the type of properties that you see nearby do not really hit in the competition zone of what a duplex and triplex tenant pool is. And I don't really think it's going to be an easy path to get anything like this community built nearby. Value Builders, this took a long time for this project to get greenlit, and the immediate around it is again a lot of these single family home McMansion style that you'll see in a lot of this pocket of Dallas.
Thanks, Ken. So the next up, and I think we're at time, so I'll just run to this really quickly. These are going to be duplexes that are situated in Denton. That's going back up to your north Dallas area. Denton's going to be about 15 to 18 miles from Frisco. Um, One thing to note, multifamilies in North Dallas are hard to come by, especially newer ones. And so when you do see these, they don't last very long, especially the ones in Denton. So these are very valuable in terms of location because it's smack dab in the middle of Denton, where there's a University of North Texas, and there's a Texas Women's College. It's in a college town. It's already an established community, and so these will rent quickly. Just because there's some competition with some apartment buildings, some older duplexes around it, but it's most definitely a already established community versus Midlothian and Sherman. I've, you're still going to have some growth there, but I just want to pick this one out because it's a in between of a town that's already heavily populated. So and it's a good price at 719. Um, you won't get as much cash flow here. The builder is offering a rate buy down. of, I think, what is 5 point, actually, he said he got an investor in at 4.25%. And so that's why you're starting to see that you see the cash flow here. The taxes will be higher, because like I said, it's already in an established area. And then your insurance is pretty consistent across the board, and your HOA fee is going to be $50 a month. But other than that, I mean, this is a good quality builder as well. It's in a heavily populated area. You're right off of the highway either way from the 380, which kind of takes you into Frisco. It's centered around, your Home Depots, your grocery stores. So it's a very heavily populated area, similar to Farmers Branch that Annie's looking at, in Carrollton. So it's that type of area, but in Denton. So this is a good in-between product if you want something that's more concentrated, more centralized in a more heavily populated area. But overall, it's a new duplex, and you can't go wrong with something that's new. So the maintenance costs are fairly low. You probably won't see anything for the first 5 to 7 years. So your cash flow will be good there. But overall, it's a good product. So I tend to take investors out to these frequently. So the one knock on these is some people say they don't like the one-car garage. It's on a smaller footprint than what you saw in Midlothian, where you have, the whole acre. This is a lot smaller footprint, but it's still a good property. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eric. And yeah, I mean, this shows 5.25. So if you're going down to 4.25, you'd probably be cash flow positive even for your variable expense cash flow. So paying for your fixed expenses and your rainy day fund, this number would probably be about $200 positive. So this would be a really great product as well. And this has even closer proximity to Frisco. So if you're wanting to get more of that Frisco overspill, it directly hits Denton a little bit more than the two other areas we mentioned, but like Eric said, you are going to kind of pay that in the cost. So again, just to kind of give you guys the overview, we do property management. I know some of you may have properties in Texas. You already have maybe a property manager. Just to contrast us from them a little bit, as we mentioned, our leasing fee is 50% of 1 month's rent. We have dedicated leasing agent staff. We do not outsource that or rely on local realtors. Our agents are the ones that are actually answering the phone calls, vetting the tenants, showing them the property, making sure that everything is sound with the property, and we're picking good quality people. Very strict on our requirements. We want to make sure that you have a tenant that could stay 3 to 5 years, and we have a high success rate of doing that. For us, really our only other main fees is a 15% renewal that we have with owners, and that's every year that your tenant stays. It's not quite the 50%, but we do a lot of negotiations in getting the rent up every year. And that is sort of a process that starts 60 to 90 days before lease expiration. We work really extensively with the owner and do a lot of market data to justify those increases and give us a recommendation to the owner for them to approve and see what they want to do. And then we go and negotiate with the tenant and really try to get them to that 5% increase number that we shoot for. And then for our management fees, you can kind of see the split right here. For a single family home, we start at 9%, which is still at least a percentage point below kind of the average that you'll see, which is 10 for a lot of PM companies. And then for a duplex to a fourplex, we do 8%. And then for a larger building, 5 to 15, we'll do 7, so on and so forth. This is kind of our footprint right now. Like I said, a lot of our roots are in Central Texas. That's where I'm at. I'm in San Antonio right now. I bounce between San Antonio, New Braunfels, Austin, many days of the week. And I do go to Houston and Dallas a few times every quarter. And so, we've been in Houston for about 3 to 4 years now, and we've been in Dallas in 1. But again, Eric has a lot more knowledge than I do and has years and years and years, if not decades, in Dallas. So he's a wealth of information. And we have all of this data that we kind of share today and some in this market data packet that we do for a lot of entry-level investors looking to get their foot in the door that likes to see those numbers. And then from here, if you are interested in anything, whether it's property management services or you want to just explore moving to Dallas or maybe getting an investment, doing a 1031 exchange, we're happy to help. We're not very salesy. Me and Eric really pride ourselves in practicing what we preach. We've been on the other side of this, so we really want to be a resource. We're not here to pressure anybody into doing anything they don't want to do. If you're just feeling things out or just want the perspective, we're here to have those conversations. So let us know you're from SARE if you're reaching out, or connect with Annie and she'll make the introduction as well. But thank you, Annie, for having us on. If any of you guys had some questions, Annie, you included, that you wanted me or Eric to answer before we get off, we're all ears and happy to be of service to you guys.
Cool, you guys are not sleepy yet? You still have time for questions?
Of course, yeah,
I
go
have
ahead.
Yep,
a
of
list
course.
of my own questions in here. Can you tell me a little bit about the natural disasters that are in the area, if they're like storms, floods, tornadoes, winter freezes, of that type?
So in my experience, we've had we might get some snow during the winter time, but it doesn't last. It'll melt like within a few days. So, and it doesn't, there's no sleet, there's no black ice or anything like that. It is snow enough for my daughter to go out there and make a snow angel. And then it'll start to melt away over in about a 3 day period because it's still hot, right? The sun pops out. Um, so in terms of national disasters, because remember, Dallas is in the middle of the US. Think about it. And so we're not coastal, right? So we're not going to get any uh tropical storms, things like that. Tornadoes, you might get some tornado sounds and warnings and high winds every now and then, but um, nothing that's out of the norm from being in the Texas, Oklahoma area. You get more tornadoes in Oklahoma and those bigger storms, but uh, since I've been here, I think we've had maybe two tornadoes touch down. One in Rowlett, which I'll tell you that story later, Annie, about I had a little house in Rowlett, and but anyways, but one tornado touchdown there, and then little small ones, but nothing that's gonna wipe your house away that I've seen. When it thunders, it's loud, right? It just sounds like there's fireworks outside. So yeah, but nothing that's going to say, "Oh, I have to get out of here." I used to live in Missouri, and they used to have tornadoes very frequently, but I don't think there's anything to be alarmed over that I've experienced in my time here in North Dallas.
I would say at least the enjoyment, whether you're a tenant or someone moving out there, is Dallas has more of the seasons than the rest of the Texas does. You're actually having a more authentic winter. That bleeds into having more of a spring and more of an autumn rather than just a summer and a not summer. That's what I like to have in a lot of San Antonio and Austin. But I saw a question, I think, on the average for like a single family home, 3 bed, 2 bath, what the insurance cost is. I think typically we'd probably say anywhere from 1,200 to 2,000 annually. Would you agree with that, Eric?
Yeah, especially with I know the builders, they have their own insurance companies, and so I know because for Sherman, the insurance is $1,200.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's true. But that was
Yeah.
only for new builds. But if it's for the older homes, like I was looking into the Farmers Branch area, I was quoted, it was 3% deductible. It was 3,500 or so. And for a 1 or 2% deductible was 5,000. And I just got that quote like a couple days ago.
Wow. You might want to check with Liberty Mutual. They're
Oh,
based here in Dallas. I have all my properties with them. I had to buy one property. I had one property with a different carrier, and my renewal was coming up, and it was 4,700. I said, no, 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 no. So then I called Liberty Mutual, and now that my policy is now 1,400 a year versus 4,700.
all right. I got to get the contact from you because I'm like, I was also using another company, NREIG, for years. And then they told me like all the lenders and that, or a lot of the insurance companies were pulling out of the Dallas side too. So it was
Oh,
tough.
I don't know. Yeah, no. Um, yeah, Liberty Mutual is the way to go, and plus they have a landlord policy. So that helps out too as well for loss of use if you need it. And then what the other things I do is get rid of the personal belonging coverage because I'm
Fish.
not living there. Yeah.
require
Yeah,
them to have
so
renter insurance too. So like their personal belongings are already typically
yep.
covered when a renter moves in. And another person, Annie, is Rachel's husband actually is an insurance provider. So he's been pretty good, like Eric's person, on making those switches. So we can both send you somebody, and yeah, it shouldn't be that much. That seems a little.
Fairly high. Yeah.
Oh my God, my quad in Arlington was like 8,000 something. I was like, this is ridiculous. I bought it when I bought it, it was like 3,700 a year. And then like 3, 4 years later, it was like 86, 8,700. I was just getting ridiculous. So
Yeah, that's a downside when you buy the older properties, the insurance is gonna be up,
that's right.
cost a
And
little bit more.
also speaking about the natural disasters, I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was mostly Austin side, but there were several giant freezes in Texas a couple of years back. How did that affect you guys?
I know the one that I recall. Oh, you know what? There was two since I've been here since 2008. There was two. I think one was during the January, and there was another one. Um,
It's been pretty frequent the last couple
it
of years.
was
2022, it was what we call Snowmageddon.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah, I was thinking of.
that's the
yeah.
one.
It was
Yeah.
bad. Yeah, it was bad. I remember we where we were. I was living in Frisco, and we were on the hospital grid, and so we didn't lose any power. But I do remember having a few pipes burst and a couple of my rentals, but that was covered under insurance. So um, once you got past that initial, week or so, I haven't. I know there are some stores where there was power out for like weeks at a time or days, but I didn't experience that. So I mean, the truth of the matter is there is climate, global warming. So no matter where you are, we're probably going to get touched by it somehow, some way. So as long as you have insurance, you're good.
I
Yeah, and
remember
we
golf ball size or golf ball, or is it baseball size hail? Golf ball size, probably.
I haven't had that. I've
Really?
probably had like a penny size, but I haven't seen any golf ball size hail or no, no, I haven't seen that. No, probably
the
more. I don't know. I haven't seen that.
the worst it hit was Austin. And there also the trees in Austin are different from the trees in the rest of the state. And so there was a lot of just brush all over the city. This caused accidents, this home damage, and all sorts of things. So Austin was hit the most. For us, we didn't manage Eric's properties at the time, but like from a PM standpoint, we send out like a blast to all of our agents through our systems ahead of things like this during the winter season to educate tenants at text and email on what they need to do ahead of a freeze. So all in all, with us, it was only about one actual like bad plumbing issue we had in about like 4 or 5 pipe burst out of 2,000 units or so. So we mitigated a lot of risk during that, but a lot of people's powers did go out. We have the Texas power grid, which is not connected to the other states, and they've said they've upgraded it. We'll see. We really haven't had a major kind of thing since, but I think Dallas at least gets cold more often. The people are more used to ice there. They're more used to a little bit of snow. They're a little bit more built for that. Austin, San Antonio, and Houston do not see this at all. So it was a little bit more damage for those cities because it hit there stronger, but we just never see snow. I mean, it's really never snowed in San Antonio that I've ever seen in my lifetime besides that time. So it was a little bit harder in those pockets, and few people died again because they're not used to navigating in the snow, and it was so bad. And for Austin, again, the trees was a big thing because those trees cannot stand that cold. A lot of those limbs just break a lot easier in that intense condition. But it was a rare thing for us. So I hope it's not more reoccurring, but at least since 2022, we have not seen something like that. Both of our past winters were super tame. But this last winter was pretty tame, or this past summer was a pretty tame summer for Texas on average. And we usually always see every year, this summer's hotter, this summer's hotter. This one really wasn't, which is great. We enjoyed it. I loved it. But that usually means the winter is going to be a lot more brutal. So we'll see if we'll see what this January and February is like, but was not a bad summer at least this time around.
And my other questions would be, I remember Texas has like or mostly Dallas maybe, or if it's all of Texas, that there's a lot of clay in the soil that leads to like unstable foundation and piping issues. Can you guys talk a little bit about those and the common issues that you guys see from properties?
Well, I know in like North Dallas and where my properties are, there is some soil movement in place in cities like Carrollton more so than Frisco. Frisco North, there's it's more rock under some of the soil, so that the foundation is a little bit more stable. I know this because I had a foundation company come out just to confirm on a few of my properties, and in some North Dallas areas, it don't like even though it sits on clay, there's rock that doesn't allow for foundation problem. But there is some cities where there is more movement and will cause foundation issues. I know in Rowlett, because it runs through a default line. It runs from Dallas all the way down to through Rowlett. I know Carrollton has some foundation issues with homes, the older homes, a little bit more movement. But yeah, to answer your question, the research is out there. If there is a particular city that you're interested in, most definitely we'll look at the how the foundation and how the soil is. But yeah, there is clay under these homes in North Dallas for sure.
And we see that a lot in Central Texas, at least. Like Eric has one property in New Braunfels, and a lot of San Antonio and New Braunfels are the clay. It's something that's more south, but many parts of Austin, North San Antonio, Houston, Dallas are a lot safer. We've had the most amount of foundation turns in New Braunfels, and that is because we have the two rivers that run through the central part of the city. There's just a lot more movement in that area, but there's just not as many bodies of water. I think that's kind of not a big sciencey person, but geography wise, I think that's always what kind of contributes to the soil types around and the movement that you'll see. But they do have the lake out in Dallas, but it's not near a lot of these areas that we're talking about for these investments in these cities.
Then Kalani asked, how often do you do foundation adjustments on your own primary home?
Foundation adjustments. I've never.
I mean, if
I
you're not
have.
finding that you're having any issues, you wouldn't adjust it. So I think I would say personally on not any property I own, and I hope not to. Typically, I think a lot of people, the rule I've always heard is that if you're not seeing things around year 15 or 20, that there's sort of kind of like you're in somewhat of a safe zone. That you probably don't have a high likelihood of ever seeing, maybe not ever, but for a significant future. But Eric, I don't know if you've maybe ever seen something like that on a property of yours.
No, I haven't. I know that my in-laws, their house was floating. This was in Aubrey, which is like 15 miles west of here. And they had to put piers under their house. And now it's, they put piers, and so now it's fine. But apparently that whole neighborhood had foundation issues. And so the builder fixed those issues for them, and some people sold and some people didn't. So it is a problem in some areas, but because you can have it. I have a rental in McKinney, and the house next to mine had to have piers, but not my house. So it depends in some cases, but um yeah, I think the soil is just different here in Texas as a whole. So, but like I said, it's always good to kind of research the area to see if there's moisture, and also it could be because of trees too. You could have trees that are get under the foundation. You could have water seeping under the foundation. So it could be those areas, particularly if you buy a pre-owned home, where there's big trees in the front and the back, and you know, the sloping on the side of the house isn't corrected. So there are some ways in which you can have foundation issues without it being from the soil naturally. So
Yeah, because Texas gets really hot. So if you think about the drainage being incorrect and water's building up around the sides of the foundation of your house, and you have in Texas, maybe sometimes where we have a lot of rain, which can happen in the spring or the autumn, kind of around transitioning from hot to cold, cold to hot. But then it gets really, really dry. So you go from a really, really wet period to a dry period to a wet period to a dry period. That's building pockets around your foundation if water is building up there because it's really, really wet, really dry, and then you're creating these air pockets, and then eventually that builds to where you're cracking and you're seeing misalignment and all of those things. So that happens even more in a soil type that's not good, like clay. But as long as they're compacting the foundation correct and they're doing the drainage around the property well, even with clay, you should not see that. And they've updated building codes in a lot of clay areas in a way that those foundations should be really sound regardless. But when we've had to do foundation work, we usually always go with professionals that offer, extended warranties on those. So if there is adjustments that need to be made 4 years, 5 years in, that we can go back to that company and they can make those adjustments if necessary. So there's some that don't warranty their work. That's not something that we feel comfortable with because usually the work is extensive. We're talking 20 to 30 grand worth of work on a foundation repair. So we want to do a larger company that has insurance, that has good ratings online, that warranties their work.
And
and
for context, we were
one other thing, let me add that real quick. The other thing is I always make sure I have a foundation drip line around my foundation that waters the foundation, that kind of drips around the foundation. Because what you want to do is you want a house is think of a house like a human being. A house needs to breathe. And if it's dry and your house can't move and shift, then what's going to move is your foundation. And so I put foundation drip lines around my foundation so that it's moist enough, not soaking wet, so that when it's dry outside, my house still can shift with the dryness of the soil.
this is
And not
underground. This is
it's a line that runs right along the foundation. You can see it. It's
oh,
like a
you can
little,
actually see on the top. Okay. Oh.
it's just right on top of the soil and it runs right along the foundation and it's connected to the sprinkler system. And so you have that going because it's
Mm.
not that much water. It's like these little bitty holes and it just makes sure it provides enough moisture so that your house can move
Yeah.
when it needs to, and it's not too wet. So that's also an option. And like I said, I think I paid like $600 to put that around one of my houses,
Mhm.
just to make sure that if there is movement, that there's moisture enough for the house to shift enough so that it doesn't hold steady and cause foundation problems. There
Mm.
was a question here: what age home would you recommend avoiding? Annie, you'll get mad at me. Anything that's beyond this 2000.
What? 2000? I was gonna say if it's as old as me or something, like,
I don't want anyone's problems. Like, but actually, when we talk about what your overall strategy is and what your whole plan is, then we can take age of the property into consideration. Like I said, I typically like to buy new, right? You get your warranties, your maintenance isn't coming at you. You got your new AC, you got your new plumbing, you got your new electric, and all those things that make a difference from when you talk about cash flow. And Annie, you know this, when you have something, you always paying out when it's something that's older, right? So I would say, but it also depends on the location. Location. So where Annie's looking, that's a great location. So I'm totally okay with something that's 1999.
It's like there's not a lot of inexpensive new properties in that pocket. So it's like going a little bit pre-owned could save you, but I would say right now, because of the interest rate environment, builders are not in a, I mean, even though Dallas is not as affected as other markets, it's not like builders are just finding buyers so easily, which is great, like Annie said, because if you're a buyer in this market, you can get a lot more now. But builders, some of them are publicly traded. You know, all of them are companies. They're not individual sellers. So when you're dealing with an individual seller selling a pre-owned, they can be, barring that they don't have to leave, maybe, or they have some flexibility, they can be stubborn. But when you're a company, a publicly traded company, the inventory's gotta go. Like it's gotta go. So you have to concede a lot quicker than a personal seller would. So I think there is more deals to be made with builders than personal sellers. That's not the end all be all rule, but that's just what we've seen across a lot of deals that we're making in different markets right now, is that builders are doing deep cuts because they have to. You know, they know that their Q4 numbers are not going to be great and they want to get inventory out while they can. And interest rates haven't improved enough for them to get rid of everything that's on their books. So if you really want a price discount, we can make it happen. And that's where Eric was getting 30K off that other one that we showed today. And you know, a lot of these people like value builders with the duplex, they're doing free leasing, free property management, tenants in place. You know, they're doing an interest rate buy down to low fours. You know, so they're paying a lot out on these, and I just see more there. But it's not like Eric. Eric's still a great negotiator with the pre-owned sellers if you can find them. And I would say there's nothing bad with something that's 2015 to now. But the later you go back, the more you risk, and that's just going to be the case. No offense, Annie.
Really, because the dream house I was looking at was 2014, 1 year off.
That's okay.
Getting your feedback though is that if we're picking something in an older neighborhood, say, because Eric, you did send me some stuff that were from the 1960s and 70s, but they look like they're redone. So
Mhm.
we're looking at an older house that's been rehabbed, or a house kind of look in the Farmers Branch in that area where I literally know, like less than 2 blocks down, there is that house that has a ton of piers, and they did do the work. But would that be a bad thing? Is it fixable? And if it is, like, it's like, what happens if I resell it? Like knowing that, hey, there was a ton of peers that were put in.
I think you shrink your pool of buyers,
I would.
because if we're talking about it, if it didn't have peers, we wouldn't be talking about the peers, right? The fact that it's something that's a topic, that's a concern. So you shrink your pool of investors, you shrink your pool of buyers for a particular house.
Then with that other house that we were looking at, that was 2 blocks down from the one I know that has peers. And if they don't, and then honestly, like when I'm a seller, I don't know shit about the disclosures. And so they can
Mhm.
just write nothing. How would I protect myself in that situation?
Yeah, we will get a foundation expert out there. It'll cost probably like 2 to 350 to have someone go out there to inspect the foundation, just to make sure there isn't any soil damage or any foundation damage, and be able to inspect it. So that'll be in addition to your normal inspection, right? And so it's money well worth it. But then also just do some research on that particular area, that particular street, because if that one house, I'm not sure why it had piers, I don't know, have the details, but to your point, it's just the disclosures, right? And so they don't really go in too much detail. And so, like the agent said, it was it has piers. He said a lot of piers, but he doesn't know how many. I
Mhm.
don't know, So my advice would be, we would do two inspections, one for the foundation and one for the traditional inspection.
And then if we sign something, is it a run away, or hey, it could be fixable, ask for a big discount? Because I still, if I have to resell it down the road, will I end up having
Someone's going to buy it,
listen?
regardless if it has peers or not, right? If the area, and the main thing in real estate is location, 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 right? If it's in a great location and you feel comfortable with that location, then someone's going to buy it, right? Regardless of whether or not it has peers.
Yeah, it's just, it may, like Eric's saying, it may shrink your buyer pool because there's a faction of people that just think, I don't want to deal with that. That makes me nervous. You know, if they they even see it, even if you give them a warrant that, hey, this is warranted work, this is this. So, but you go for a property in that pocket that is similar, that doesn't have the beams, there's going to be a price adjustment. So it's kind of what you decide is better for you. But to me, if you could find a property that's in the 90s, hasn't shown foundation issues, that's great, because 20 years have come by, it hasn't shown it yet. You're in sort of a safe zone with it. And if you even pay, it depends what that spread is. But even if it was 50 to 100K, I would say that's well worth it, in my opinion, in a area like that. To just to not uh shrink your buyer pool later, that's my opinion ultimately on it. Is that it's, and again, I just don't know for that specific pocket, what is the difference between one that is more turnkey and ready to go, and what is one that has the beams. But if it is something we're talking about where it's like 50 to 100K, I think it's well worth it to go for an alternate option.
Yeah. And I actually brought a house that had piers. I brought the house for 90,000. I brought 3 houses off of that one house. And I sold it and did 1031. So it can work out. It just depends on the location.
1,000. I didn't even know that existed anymore.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So it like I said, it depends on the location.
So I'm also looking at also, like for me, my background, I also look into a lot of the data about like large multifamily apartments, like 100, 200 units up. And what we've noticed is that a lot of the apartment rents have been softening over the last year or so. How does that affect what the single family home or the smaller properties would look like when the big ones are like dropping so significantly? And how are you guys and what are you guys seeing with your rents? Like, are they still averaging like stable? Have you seen it going down? How are you basically underwriting right now?
For Dallas, I would say it hasn't been so oversaturated for a lot of pockets, and I hate to say that it depends answer, but it really just depends what pocket you're in. Austin is one that has overbuilt a lot of inventory. The saying that people say is Austin is very YIMBY. So it's the difference between yes in my backyard and no, not in my backyard, of these city policies on coding and restrictions. So Austin has alleviated a lot of coding that would make building harder, that is prevalent in a lot of major cities in Texas, and has allowed multifamily building, both for your traditional duplex, fourplex, but also an ADU. You get a credit for adding the ADU onto a lot of single family homes. But apartment building has been greenlit a lot in Austin, and that's where you've seen rents really soften a lot. And even if you look between San Antonio and Austin, Austin is, traditionally leagues above San Antonio in rent. Now, not too much above it, but I haven't seen that in too many pockets of Dallas. Again, we've had quite a few rentals pop up with Eric and Monique throughout the year, and not really much things have stuck. But I have those pockets of Texas that have really struggled. And again, I kind of mentioned them earlier. I would say that's a lot of South San Antonio. That is a lot of Seguin, New Braunfels, parts of Austin, but not a lot of of Dallas are like that. In the single family homes, again, if you're looking at the Venn diagram, so there's single family homes, apartment buildings, and they're sort of the kind of people that can do somewhere in the middle of a townhome, duplex, triplex sort of thing. There's not that many single family home rentals in a lot of these pockets, and rents haven't softened that much. I will say they have not grown. So not to, oversell Dallas as a market that just the last 2 years have been big rent growth. They have not. They've been pretty stagnant. But traditionally the rate over the last 20 years is about 5%. So taking some of the bad years with the good years, that's still what you can expect. And that fares a lot better than other Texas cities that you would see out there. But I don't think most parts of Dallas have greenlit a massive amount of apartment projects as much as in Austin, Texas, at least.
And then how is like the number of evictions in Dallas at the moment compare or especially now with our interest rates higher compared to the other major Texas cities?
Our default rate across the board is very, very low. So honestly, we've only had one eviction this whole year, and it has actually been in Austin of all places. And I think uh, really we maybe have one that we are going to be going forward with in San Antonio, but we're very strict on our requirements. So that does usually sometimes mean a little bit of a longer vacancy, but we make tenants have a 600 credit score. We make them have 3 times the written income. They can't have landlord debt, evictions, broken leases. We have a certain amount of pet requirements. So sometimes a property manager can lease something in a week or two, letting more riffraff come in. But your tenant turnover, your chances of a turnover go up. Not just the turnover in like an eviction or any of that, but just them leaving after a year. That cost you money. You do not over 10 years want to see 10 different tenants. Like that's no bueno. But our tenants in Dallas, the stat I will give you that is important is that our tenants there have stayed the longest. If we're averaging all of Dallas, all of Houston, all of Austin, all of San Antonio, Austin and Dallas see the longest tenants, especially with the single family home. They are staying for an average about 3.5 years, or that the state average is like 2.5. So, it's 2 to 2.5 is usually what you can expect for a nice single family home. But you can expect a little bit nicer in a lot of parts of Dallas. And I think that's the schools, the jobs, the more anchors there are to a tenant that are kind of weighing them down, the less transit they are, the less they're bouncing around. So if they're like an hourly worker and they don't have any kids and it's boyfriend, girlfriend instead of married, there's just more there in that can move somebody around than somebody who is married, maybe has kids, or not married or not have kids, but have a W-2 job, have high income, have investments. So just the type of tenant pool that you're seeing at a lot of the properties we sell, that rental rate in Dallas does very well. And those tenants stay a long time. And we have not had an eviction in Dallas yet after a year. Not even in really Houston either, but Austin has been the one that we've had this year. But even then, we've seen tenants stay long in Austin too, just like Dallas.
And how many total units are you guys managing in all of Texas? Because one is very little.
About 2,500.
2,500 units that you're managing, and only one, almost maybe two.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we have
Oh,
some tenants
that's
get
great.
behind a little bit, and that even is about less than 1% that we have. And that would be like, they're late after like 3 days. So that's about 1% a month. And usually we're very, very good about getting them to pay. And so by the end of the month, we may have 1 or 2 stragglers at most, and then maybe we've only had one all year that actually has gone on to an eviction. Yeah, we do really in-depth renewal inspections. So every year we go and visit the property, do pictures, we do video, we give the owner recommendations if we need to do anything. That's our chance to like kick the tenant out if we're like, okay, you've been there a year, you did pass the requirements, but now like you're growing weed out of the house. So like we're smelling weed, you're growing weed out of the house, you can't be living here anymore, and we're not going to renew you. So we're really about quality, and being very hands-on as a property manager is really important in maintaining that, because again, if you can maintain over 10 years, 1 or 2 tenants, that's the dream, and you will save a lot of money that way. But if you see, 5 or more tenants, I really feel like you almost lost. Even if the investment did really good and the appreciation as well, that's good. That's all fine and dandy, but your cash flow will be affected a lot with so much tenant turnover, which I really think a PM is kind of the make or break with that, along with obviously picking the good investment.
All right, so I'm going to tap into your investor brains. So this is a two-part question. Imagine that you are an out-of-state investor and your budget is about $500,000 with a 25% down. What would be your buy box now in Dallas? Like number of rooms, number of bathrooms, which type of neighborhood? And the second question is, imagine that you are a local like Eric. What would be your buy box? Also around the same budget, and why?
So with 500, um,
Say 25, 30% down.
yeah, 35% down. So 500.
That's about 120.
So 320. The problem is I most definitely would do something new. Um, one um that will command the type of rent for a $500,000 price point. I don't know because I think Kian said it earlier that why would a tenant rent something for say 3,500 that's used versus 3,500 for something new, right? And because that same philosophy applies when they're buying or selling something new versus something used. That's why when a resale home versus a new home, I'm going to buy a new home because it's the same price plus I get a lower interest rate. So it's the same thing when it comes to rentals. A newer home is going to be more appealing, but then also it also depends on the neighborhood too. If there's a if that if it's if you own a business or something and you need to be in a school district, or you need to be in a particular area, then a used home to buy at 500 can work in your situation because of the market of Farmers Branch, right? Um, but yeah, it most definitely be something new, something that is 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, um, and something, you know, anywhere along the Dallas Tollway, Collin County, um, that whole corridor, because that's where I see the growth. That's where I see the progress. That's where I see the development. That is where I'm going to see the biggest bang for my buck in terms of appreciation. Um, because you're right there in the middle of that 500,000. I mean, if you had another 150,000, then hands down, I would do a duplex, something like that. But that's not an option. So trying to find a sweet spot in between something that's going to come give you the rent you need to cash flow, but then also in your particular case, Annie, something that you can see yourself living in, and 5+ years, right? So um, my mindset is something new, just because of given uh, the maintenance piece. I don't want to have to deal with any maintenance, so that's my train of thought. Kian, any thoughts on that? On yours, what you would think?
Just the nature of builders right now and all of them reaching out, um, in being willing to have a discussion on aggressive offers. I mean, things that I just would be shocked ever got accepted or getting accepted by builders. It shocks me, which is great. And like Eric said, there's been different times in the market, and early COVID, when the market was very aggressive, it was the complete opposite. You could get a really good deal on a pre-owned, and builders, because they were getting buyers much easily, were like, screw everybody, we're going to charge the highest amount, we're running a business. And it was sellers that were more methodical. Therefore, a pre-owned home, usually you were getting a better deal. The script is kind of flipped right now, at least because of the nature of the economy. And I really liked McKinney as kind of an outsider. Again, I grew up in Dallas. I still go back there frequently. I don't know it like the back of my hand, but I know it pretty well. And I really loved Plano. Plano, I think, has like at least for this region of the United States, the most concentration of headquarters. It feels very much like Irvine, California, in my opinion. I know times people have described it like a little Silicon Valley, and it feels like that. It feels kind of very corporate. And uh, McKinney, I think, is the most affordable pocket nearby that I would say is a very nice kind of small town feel. And it's very affordable. You could get something well within the confines of what Annie is saying for new construction. Plano itself is pretty unaffordable, so I don't know if that would work. But I liked McKinney a lot. And granted, the property taxes is higher, but you could still find something that is pretty much break even for cash flow, if not a slight negative, at least 20% down. If you were willing to do 30, you could probably break even or maybe do a slight positive. But McKinney is very centralized, very nice, very similar to Frisco, not as big, but a huge cost savings and great schools. Our other agent lives there, and it going there last time, you could see the development there as well. And I think it's slowly starting to kind of catch there to where it's becoming a little Frisco 2.0, if not already. I mean, Eric could be the one to tell you that, but I don't see, like, all the rentals we have there have done great and have just flown off the shelf.
And this response would be, but this same answer would be if you were both an out-of-state remote buyer and a local. Because I'm imagining if Eric, you're local, you can do a flip or something and then burr it out. Would you still rather go the new build route?
Yeah, because if I'm out of state, that's the safest bet for me because
I mean, like as a
uh,
local, I'm saying you as a local, like if you were also local
oh
and you
yeah, I'm gonna do new
still.
regardless. Yeah, I'm still gonna do because with insurance and HOA and taxes being where they are, for me to justify the purchase, I'm gonna have to rely on the appreciation. And you're only gonna get great appreciation if it's something newer. You're gonna get more appreciation because of the infrastructure isn't quite there yet. So once that infrastructure starts to build around that community that you're buying in, where your Costco comes in, your healthcare, your hospitals, your schools and fire departments, police department, once that starts to build around your property in that community, so does your appreciation. Versus that's already in your a pre-owned area, that development is already there. You already have the schools, you already have the hospitals, you already have the Walmarts, right? So you want to catch that ride up as that community starts to develop, and you want to be part of that ride as it goes up in price.
And so if I didn't tell you that my area was my dream, that I would be living there in the Farmers Branch, and knowing that my budget is roughly around the under 600 mark, would you say Plano? Oh, not Plano. What was it? McKinley? And is McKinley like a new? I don't know. Is it the new builds or
No,
something?
no,
No.
McKinney's a town. It's Frisco. That when we talk about North Dallas, it's going to be Plano, McKinney, Frisco, and then Prosper.
So it sounds like we're gonna head down up there then, huh?
Yeah.
I well, I haven't even concentrated on it because you wanted to look at that close to H mark. So,
Because I love Asian food. Well, on my thought process was that, I could live there, but then like now that you're saying all these other things where like, Annie, you're paying hella for the insurance, then I might, and that the property tax was about $13,000, then I might have to switch to this side.
well, property
Remember?
taxes. Yeah, you're going to pay lower property taxes. Dallas property taxes is higher than Collin County,
Mm.
so you're going to pay
Wow.
you're going to pay for 500. You're going to pay less.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe Vision Board might need some adjustment at this point.
Well,
At
you
least
can
for 3
still
days.
proximity to that community is what, Eric, from these pockets.
It's not that far. It's probably about I would say 10 miles. It's not that far,
I'm from the Bay.
right?
I could deal with. I'm patient with traffic, unless it's like Houston traffic.
No, I wouldn't say
No.
it's bad.
Oh,
You have a lot
No,
of
it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I went I was going to make some sushi at home and I went to H Mart, and so it's not that far. Carrollton isn't that far.
well, where do you live?
I live in Prosper.
Oh, so you're up on the north side.
So
Okay.
north, so it's Frisco or Prosper. So um but you know what, Carrollton off the 121, there's like where Nebraska Furniture is. I'm gonna send you that location, and that is a great location. Like there's a lot going on there. It's called Nebraska Furniture. It's off the 121, and that's part of Carrollton, and that's a nice area.
Well, I don't remember hearing about this. Is a furniture store?
Yeah, it's called Nebraska Furniture.
I
It's
only know
probably
there's
one.
It's not nowhere near Carrollton, right? Because Hard Eight, it was near a giant furniture store, I remember. Is it the same one?
That's it. That's it. That's the area.
Hey, see, when you talk about Hard Eight and then that all
Yes,
fit in. Okay.
yes, yes. That
I
that
love that
area,
area. What else
that
is that?
area, that work, and that has a large Asian community. That area work, but you wanted Farmers Branch. You were, you were
Well, I was thinking the airport because I fly into Dallas Love and also
that's
Fort.
not that's not far. You could take the 121 to Dallas Tollway.
All right, let's redo this vision board thing. Eric,
I'm gonna
I
look at
will
Carrollton
put my
overall.
trust in you on this.
Yeah, I'm looking at Carrollton and see what's over there for you. I think let me
Especially
try
now
that
that you had
area.
mentioned the soft soil thing, that could be bad. And then because I could hear it in your voice yesterday when we were talking about the peers thing and like lifetime guarantee, and you're like, and I could sense hesitancy.
Yeah, but like I said, if I'm buying something and I'm going to represent you, I want you to sleep well at night. And if you need to sell, and then I want that pool of buyers. I want the most buyers for you. I want the most investors. I want the best tenants. So I wouldn't want from the outside investor out of the state. That's one thing you don't have to worry about. When you want to sell, you just want to sell. You don't want to have to put on this, oh, every time you do your disclosures, oh, I got to put down this peer situation. Then the buyer's going to ask me questions about it. How many peers and when was it done? Was a warranty? Like no one wants to do all that.
Especially you saw me fill out my own disclosures for that Arlington property, and I was like, I hate this.
I'm just being honest. Like this is what I do. I'm passionate about it. I've been doing it for a while. So I'm just giving you my thoughts on how I would invest with it if I had the resources that you have and what you're trying to accomplish with your 1031 exchange.
Fair point. And then Kalani asks, is it a common thing to see Carrollton streets flooded when it rains? Do Carrollton have sewer problems? When I was there house hunting, streets were flooded where I went. That's also a thing. I remember when I was driving down, I think I was going through Grapevine, and the rain was so bad, and it just felt like the water was not getting absorbed anywhere. And it just felt like it was flooding when we were driving on the freeway.
I haven't heard about that. I'm not sure if it's in a newer part of Carrollton or older part. I do know there are some older parts in Carrollton. But what I'm saying, that we're almost talking about that Plano Carrollton area, like where Legacy West is, like that is that whole Nebraska Hard Eight area. That is an area I'm referencing to. That's a newer part of Carrollton.
But that's the area with the soil issues.
Oh no, I have to do some research. The other thing is, anytime I always recommend when you get your insurance quotes, your insurance agent or whoever you're talking to, they can give you any weather events that occurred in that zip code to be able to determine whether or not it was floods.
Mhm.
I would, if you, I think where you're out there, Annie, it would be really cool to check out Legacy West area. That's
Love
where
it there. It's my favorite place.
that is where our office is at, and I always stay down there when I come down. And I love that pocket. I think it is so cute, and they have everything. They have everything you could possibly want there. It's
Yeah.
more expensive, but it is really nice.
Yeah, we have a lot of our monthly meetups in Sarah right there, especially on the second floor of where the food hall is, because we could fit like 40, 50 of us.
Yeah.
It's always really fun up there.
Yeah, haystack is a restaurant. Yeah. Now, yeah, that might work. But yeah. So I'll look at Carrollton, that little area. It's easy access to the freeway. It's right off the 121 and the tollway.
And I also like how you talked about the new builds of like the Sherman, if they're only in 300 range. And it sounds safer for a 1031 actually, because you're guaranteed to have it, right?
Yeah, what do you mean? Like the
Well, I mean, looking at the pricing on the 311s and like if it's a new build, because my biggest anxiety from my last time basically, I had to do the 1031 and I had to find two new properties within 24 hours, which scared the shit out of me. And so
Well,
if it's a new build, then technically aren't you like guaranteed that's yours? Would be assuming.
correct. Yeah, there was no bidding war or anything like that. Now I do have new builds in Salina. So Salina is the fastest growing city in the country. Now, because I've been doing it for so long, I picked out certain builders, and one of those builders is Ashton Woods, and they only allow like certain investors to invest in this community. And so because I've already had a relationship with them, I can, let a few investors in. Because they only allow like a certain, maybe
Mhm.
a certain like 5% investors into a community. But I do have that community as well. I just didn't show it on today's meeting. But yeah, Salina is the next biggest thing that's happening in the United States
Yeah,
because
you there.
yeah. So
Those are
And
big words, Eric. Those are the biggest thing I'm gonna hear.
hey, look, put it
This
up
is
on
being
chat,
recorded, right?
pull it up on Chat GPT. Ask Chat GPT or pull it up on Gronk and any AI tool you'd be able to see.
For reals. Well, I will do that on Saturday when we're gonna do that underwriting together and looking at all the listings. And then we'll have a lot of questions probably by then. Because
Okay. Good deal.
well, being so, wow. Oh my God, I asked you guys a ton of questions. I'm so sorry. I forgot you guys are in CST.
No, this is fun.
So I really appreciate all of your time, especially it's been 2 hours. Sorry for making you guys stay up so late for me, but I am super excited to come and see you this very, very weekend. And it sounds like if we're going up north, I get to go to Buc-ee's and get my new t-shirts. Yeah.
We
But
will have a blast.
we're excited to see you guys. All right. So
photo. We need to capture the moment.
capture the moment of us in the house or our giant house.
Us at you at Bucky's, you and all
Oh,
your.
I've been there. I go there all the time.
Oh, okay. Well,
I try to go to every single one, all the different cities, and then get one of the t-shirts. I think Bronzeville won, and I've gotten
Oh,
like in several places in Florida just for kicks.
to be at when San Marcos opens. I think that's setting the record. So you have to.
Oh, we are heading down to your side in April. Will it be open then?
It may be. I mean, yeah, they put those things up so quick, so it probably will be, and that would be a great spot for the bus tour. That's where we should stop for gas.
Because Nelson Strip Mall that he owns is actually in San Marcos.
Well, there you go. Very cool.
We can go stop by there and get one of the t-shirts there. The silly things I do just to make an excuse to come see you guys. I just really wanted the t-shirt. I like you guys, but I also want the t-shirt.
Completely okay. We understand.
Awesome. All right. So, and then also out of curiosity, Eric, have you been in a house with like 50, 60 Asians before? Just curious.
Of course, I'm from Los Angeles.
Oh, good. Then you won't feel weird.
No, I'm from Los
Come to our
Angeles.
house party. Yes. You fit in.
I am from LA.
Kalani asked for more information about the properties. Why don't I give you guys a moment to grab her email from the chat.
Yeah, I got it right here. I got it.
Okay.
Email.
Cool. Yes, and Kalani's also a good friend of us. Actually, she's from SoCal as well, and she's a nurse and also an agent down there. So you guys can connect. And I know she also has something over there. So you guys
Okay,
can. Yeah,
perfect.
see, Kalani, it shows that I pay attention to you. All the internet strangers in there. All right. Thank you guys again for your time. I can't wait to see you this weekend.
All right, you
Yeah.
too.
All right, everyone.
Take
Sweet
care.
dreams.
All right, bye.
Bye.